Here's an example with more variables. So differentiate implicitly to find the first partial derivatives of z. And we have the equation x times ln of y plus y squared times z squared plus z squared equals 8. So we assume it's x times ln of y plus y squared times z squared plus z squared minus 8 equals 0. We assume that that equation defines z implicitly as a function of x and y. So the partial of z with respect to x would be the negative of the partial with respect to x divided by the partial with respect to z of this function. So here it is, the partial with respect to x. Well, ln of y is a constant and the derivative of x is 1, so it's just going to be ln of y here. This is a constant, this is a constant, this is a constant. So the derivative of the rest of that is just 0. So we've got negative of ln of y. Then in the denominator, we want the partial with respect to z of this. So this is a constant, so the derivative of all that 0. Here we have a partial with respect to z, we'd have a y squared. And here the partial with respect to z, we'd have a 2z. So there it is. That's the partial of z with respect to x. And the partial of z with respect to y, same idea, partial with respect to y divided by partial with respect to z with a little negative sign in front. So the partial of this with respect to y, well, since the derivative of ln of y is 1 over y, we got x, which is the constant, over y. And the derivative of y squared z would be, z is considered a constant, so just 2yz. The derivative of this and this with respect to y, of course, are 0 because they're considered constants. And then we want to find fz, the partial derivative with respect to z. Well, the derivative of all this is 0. The derivative of this would be y squared, and the derivative of this would be 2z, and the derivative of that would be 0, so we've got y squared plus 2z. So, our derivative simplified algebraically. Here's what I did to simplify it algebraically. I multiplied by y over y, which is 1. When you multiply this by y, the y's cancel, you get x. When you multiply this by y, you get a y squared. When you multiply this by y, you get a y cubed. When you multiply this by y, you get a 2yz. So there's a little simplified version of our derivative.